So I was a guy who had a really bad stutter, to a point where there's a couple years where I was almost mute. I could barely speak. Now, at the time, it sucked, of course.
I would say this, from the time I met you and now, it's a huge difference.
Huge difference.
I don't see anything,
Yeah,
any study there at all.
and I give a lot of that to
Yeah.
with jiu-jitsu. But in that time, the one thing, the one skill I acquired is I became a great observer, and I knew how to listen because I couldn't fucking talk. And I grew up in a kind of, one could say, a normal working class 70s upbringing, which was kind of a weird time. And those of you who are older out there will remember the weirdness of the 70s.
I wasn't born that time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I often say I was a child of the 60s, grew up in the 70s, became of age in the 80s, and lost my cool in the 90s.
It's a pretty good journey.
Right?
And I guess jiu-jitsu fits in perfectly.
Absolutely. And so as a kid that stuttered a lot, had a big ego, was small for my age, I got in a lot of fights. A lot of fights, because I couldn't but turn down a fight. I didn't want to be called a coward, right? I relate a lot to the honor culture of Brazil. And then, so I did classical Japanese karate, and I would learn this stuff, and it was kind of like it was either expressly said or implied that once you get to the next level, then it will work. And karate wasn't working really well in my, whether it was just sparring with my friends at the park after school or a real fight, like, I always retreated to the primal instinct of rushing in and grabbing. So by the time high school rolled around, wrestling was a natural fit. I'm a grabber. And I was okay at wrestling. High school was kind of wild years. I got ran over by a car my senior year. That's a whole long story. Ran right over my stomach. My head hit the engine. I remember oil pouring out all over me, which was actually blood that I thought was oil from the car. It's a long fucking story, but I got a lot of wild stories of youth where I missed.
I guess your pace was on the pace to find something that makes you in a normal lifestyle, which I can see jiu-jitsu ahead.
Yes.
In your life, regardless.
Yes.
Continue. I'm kind of. I didn't know about those facts.
Okay. I'm
learning. I'm learning too that.
So wrestling I loved in high school, and I quickly perfected the skill of shooting in, bringing a guy down, holding him in a headlock, and punching him in the face. And I'm not saying I fought all the time. I'm not proud that I fought a lot, but I drank a lot. I couldn't turn down fights, and young males fight. That's what we do.
We all have those phases in our life. Then later on in life, we learn that was a learning process that somehow I have to go through.
Yes.
And you did survive, and
yes.
Look at you today here, sir.
So then, during the period where I right after high school, I went in the Marine Corps Reserves. This will be a whole other story down the other line. But not long after that, I realized that my area of main weakness was striking. So I got heavily into Muay Thai and boxing. And I had one pro Muay Thai fight.